that Iran will use it, but Iran will provide it to a non-state entity that is not bound by any international law or rules of warfare. And Iran can claim deniability that it.
Yes.
And that's why President Trump bombed for that's why.
So imagine Israel is one of the 9.
Yeah.
One of the 9 nuclear capable countries. Imagine this Mossad that is absolutely capable of incurring across Iranian borders, smuggle in a 50-pound tactical nuke. And they take it and they put it inside one of the testing ranges, where they put it inside one of the facilities inside Iran. And then they put it on a timed detonator, and 13 hours later, it goes off. There's a nuclear explosion underground in Iran, in an Iranian facility. That we, in this simulation, we know it's triggered by Israeli covert action. But the whole world sees an explosion go off in Iran. So now the president wonders, did they just run a nuclear test? Iran raises their hand and say, we did not run a nuclear test. Somebody put a nuclear weapon in our territory. Who believes who? Right? What does Saudi Arabia believe? Well, shit, Iran has nuclear capability. We're nuclear threshold. Boom, let's get it going. Japan, nuclear threshold. They start getting their program going.
How bad does it look for Iran if it admits that Israeli commandos or agents made their way into one of the most top secret facilities right under their nose?
Right.
So I have a curiosity, which you might know.
You
and
have
it's
some
a possible theory.
Some sick curiosities. We should share a drink.
No, this is like a terrifying one. Is that after October 7th, President Biden went to Israel himself. He did not send Blinken. Remember that? This was in
That was
hours.
a big deal. That was a big deal.
This is in hours. This was not a man who was, out playing football, okay? He goes to the heart of the battle zone. Why? My theory is that he said to Netanyahu, there's one line you may not cross. And if you cross it, we are not friends anymore, ever again. And that's the nuclear line. That is my theory. No one's whenever I've asked anyone, they just don't have an answer. Their lips get very
pursed.
And no one says anything, which leads me to believe that is precisely what happened.
There's so much going on around this map that sits in front of us it all seems to be happening at once with, Russia and Ukraine, and you've got China and with Taiwan. You've now got the Middle East going off with Iran and Israel and everything happening in Gaza. It doesn't feel like this is going to go the other way. It doesn't feel like this is going to retract anytime soon. It's funny because when Trump got elected, he promised to end these wars. And under his reign, it seems like there's more wars popping up. And actually, a lot of this causes cover and distraction for other people to start, invading countries that they've got a problem with. And we talked a little bit about international law being violated and new precedences being set in terms of what you can do. We're now at a point where it's kind of okay to bomb a sovereign country. It's kind of okay just to roll across the border and just take what you want. So I think that's where my concern starts. And I'm looking over at the other side of the map here with Russia and Ukraine, and I'm asking myself, how does that end? Putin can't just roll out of there, because then why did he ever roll in? I mean, it doesn't look like Ukraine are going to allow him to take a part of their country. That war's going to carry on. And then you've got China and Taiwan, where the tension has increased. And I think I read that there's been more murmurs of conflict or invasion going on with China in recent times, which would probably be, now would be a great time if you're China and you want to take Taiwan. Now would be a pretty good time to do it. Trump is busy.
Not just busy. There's a military test happening in Taiwan in the next few days where they're practicing or prepping for a amphibious invasion from the Chinese People's Liberation Army onto the coast of Taiwan. And so what has the Chinese government done in the last few days? They have jammed GPS signals. They have launched drones that are interfering with radar, basically, and blocking shipping lanes legally within where they can be. But the point being is that if you're Taiwan, you're prepping for this amphibious invasion that may not need to happen because China can do plenty to disrupt and make life for Taiwan miserable without even setting one soldier's foot on Taiwanese soil. So absolutely, this is, and meanwhile, the U.S. is busy elsewhere. Look at the missiles that were used to provide Israel, the THAAD missiles that were used to defend against Iranian ballistic missiles. It's been depleted, right? So if you're the U.S. now, you're at a weaker state of being able to defend Taiwan than you were a month ago, 6 months ago.
And there's also sort of a public fatigue, right? Because now the public in the United States, they're more polarized. There's even on the right, there's some people that think we should be going to war. On the left, they think we shouldn't, etc. It's getting quite murky. There's a lot of backlash, and I'm sure Trump feels that. Some of his closest media allies like Tucker Carlson and half my Twitter feed are saying he shouldn't have dropped the bomb, he shouldn't go to war. And I'm sure that stuff gets to him. But Benjamin, you believe, I think, that if there were to be a trigger for World War III, it would come from that region.
I think so. I think we would see it in the form of what we're seeing now: trade war, supply chain crisis issues. We saw during COVID what happens when the supply chain is disrupted. That was a sort of a non-human event, meaning it was a virus. But imagine China now banning the sale of all rare earth minerals to the West, right? These are minerals that are used in the construction of lithium-ion batteries, microchips, processors, things of that nature. And then imagine if China says, look, we're simply not going to sell these things to the United States and its Western allies. Done. We're not going to. What happens then? So I think a major conflict will be precipitated by an economic and trade war, which we're now basically in for all intents and purposes. And until the US and Western allies can diversify by getting these resources elsewhere, I don't know if occupying Greenland is going to be the answer, or making Canada the 51st state will give us that. But this is where the Chinese are very effective. They have a large amount of these minerals within their borders. We know that there's a good amount in Ukraine, which is why President Trump wanted to make that deal with the Ukrainians to secure those mineral rights. But this all goes back to trade and technology. You don't need to control territory for territory's sake now. You need territory that has something that's vital, whether it's oil, less so these days, arguably, but now it's rare earth minerals and access to trade routes. That is where you start messing with that, you are then lighting the fuses of war.
Which are already being messed with. Everything that you just rattled off is already in motion. It's already happening. It's part of why I make the claim that World War III is already happening. If China invades Taiwan, if China takes Taiwan administratively, judiciously, militarily, however they choose to go in there, because we keep thinking that they're going to send warships in and weaken the battlefield with missiles or something. That's not how they took Hong Kong. They took Hong Kong administratively and then just moved in the police after saying we have legal right. That's exactly what they're doing in Taiwan. They even have a parliament in Taiwan that's majoritively pro-China, right? So they meddled with the elections in January enough to win a majority in the parliament, even though they lost the presidency, right? So I think we're seeing the same messaging coming out of Europe. If China moves on Taiwan, the world kind of does this, and Taiwan's alone. Not only because the president's distracted, but also because NATO is distracted. Europe is distracted. And the last thing anybody wants is to fight over there when there's so much bullshit happening over here.
But the thing is, they don't even need to move in and invade. All they have to do is block shipping routes,
Correct.
which they can do.
Yep.
No one's going to challenge them on that. And basically stop selling these rare earth minerals to every country that wants them. What do we do then? Russia's not selling us what it has. Russia can choose to do the same thing.
Well, that's not going to turn into a kinetic war. The United States...
Won't, right. It won't, exactly.
It'll turn into more of what we're already seeing. More tariffs and more threats and more trade and more of the same stuff that we're already seeing, which is a big part of why I think we're already in the middle of
that.
I
agree. That is the war we're in right now. It just doesn't look like the wars of the past.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Biden that said or suggested that if China were to invade or take Taiwan, then there would be a war. We'd be in a war.
But it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to. For China to win, it doesn't have to set foot on Taiwanese soil. All it has to do is basically isolate Taiwan economically, trade-wise, and then dare anybody else in the West or elsewhere to do anything about it.
Will they do anything about it?
That's really difficult to see.
Even France, even the president of France just came out recently and was like, if China takes Taiwan, I don't think France is going to get involved.
Yeah. If we in the West can find our minerals elsewhere, I think we'll throw Taiwan under the bus.
And under the Biden CHIP Act, that's exactly what we're trying to do, is find our diversified routes.
Haven't we got some sworn promise to protect Taiwan?
Yes.